Hi, Jan here, welcome back to my channel. And I'm making this video because I put a post recently on my Facebook page saying that we'd lost our beloved Chester, our short-haired pointer.
Yeah.
And it happened quite suddenly, and so many people had messaged and said what happened, and it's something that is just easier to tell you than it is to type it all out. So I thought I'd make a little video explaining, because it was very fast, very, very unexpected. And it's Chester's Tale, the final chapter really. So, as I say, it was unexpected. He was perfectly, as far as we knew, fit and healthy. He was eating, drinking, playing, doing all the things he's always done, right up until last Friday. And Friday afternoon, he started wanting to go out to the garden. And he kept going out, but not managing. It was clear he wanted to do a poo, but not managing to produce anything at all. And then he'd come back in, and 10 minutes later, it just kept going on and on. I thought, oh, you know, looks like he's a little bit constipated. Still didn't think too much of it. He didn't eat all of his dinner that night, but he had some of it, didn't he?
Some, yeah.
And then the next morning, he did manage a poo, but it was a small one. So we thought, oh well, at least what it is moving on. But then he started this going out in the garden thing again. It clearly wasn't enough, so Neil took him out with Echo and Bear for their normal walk. But when he came back, he hadn't done anything on his walk. And we're going through the same thing with this going out in the garden and keep trying to poo and not managing anything. So Neil said he'd take him up to the park and give him a good off-the-lead run, see if that would shift things a little bit. So
give him a bit of a move around.
That's what he did, but when he went off lead, normally with Chester, you take the lead off, and the minute you say go and play, he's gone like a bullet out of a gun.
Oh,
isn't
he's
he?
running around like anything.
And he was a fast dog. But he was just not running.
Enjoying. He didn't do any running, but he was going off sniffing bushes and having a good sniff round, and pretty much just keeping up with me. Instead of normally he's running around the perimeter of where you are and just lots of running here, there, and everywhere. This is what you love to do, is run.
Yeah, so he was just kind of mooching about as opposed to running, but still didn't manage anything on that walk. But then dinner that night, he wasn't interested in eating, so now we're starting to think there's something wrong. And this is the Saturday now. And I had, thinking that it was thinking that he was constipated, I was concerned because about a week before that, when I changed his bedding, and he had an ordinary old-fashioned wool blanket in there, just a big old pink wool blanket. And when I took it out to wash it, there were chew holes in it, and I thought, I wonder if he's eaten some of the blanket and it's kind of causing a little bit of a blockage. You know, maybe not completely blocked because he had managed a poo, but maybe there was something not right, and it was at the back of my mind. I was just worried about that. So I tried to get a vet's appointment on Saturday. The only one, in Crawley, the only vets that you can go to on a 24-hour basis are Sears Croft, which is the emergency 24-hour vet, and you know that's £190 before you walk through the door. So I thought, well, he's uncomfortable, but he didn't seem to be that distressed, did he, on Saturday? So we said, right, first thing Sunday morning, we'll ring up Vets for Pets who have a Sunday surgery and see if we can get him an appointment there. So from 10 o'clock till 10:30, Neil was ring. You know what it's like in England trying to get a doctor's appointment. Well, it's the same with the vets. You just got ring to be the first in queue. And you managed to do that.
Yeah.
And we got an appointment for 11:30. So he again been trying to do poo that morning, managed something about the size of a small acorn.
Yeah.
But not really producing anything much, and wasn't eating his breakfast. Well, we didn't actually offer him breakfast because I was concerned that there might, if it was anything to do with this pink blanket, it would mean an operation. If he's blocked his stomach or his gut up with woolen blanket, he would need surgery. And I thought, well, if he wasn't that bothered about food and drink anyway, so if he goes down on an empty stomach, if he's got to have an operation, then they can do it. So 11:30 we go in and see a lovely lady vet who we'd not seen before. She was new to us, but she was lovely, and she gave him a really thorough examination and felt all along his tummy and his underbits, and said he's very, very tender, but I can't feel any obstruction or anything. And she said we need the best course of action in terms of treatment was to do some blood tests. So she said if she could draw some blood, if we could hang around for about half an hour until we got the results in, then we'd know where to go from there.
Yeah.
And at this stage we were talking about special canned dog food and maybe some something to settle his tummy. Thinking it might be, well, the vet was thinking it was an infection. I'm still thinking pink blanket. But he had his blood test, we went off for a walk. When we came back, the good news was that his bloods came back very
Positive.
very positive.
Yeah.
You know, there was maybe a slight sign of infection, but nothing really screaming. So she said it could be just constipation. So what we could do is a full enema. So I'm thinking, yeah, that probably sounds right.
When did the ultrasound scan happen?
That was when he went in for the enema.
Oh, that was when he went in.
Yeah, he actually. She said, "Can you leave him with us now, and then you can come back about 3:30 to pick him up, and we'll do a full enema, which will be under sedation, because she said it's kind of from the top down. It just clear his whole digestive tract all the way through, so anything that's there should flush through." And she said, and if necessary, we'll do an ultrasound while we're doing that. And so, okay, how much would that be? And the enema was £700. But, what were you going to say?
I was going to say before that we were up to 200 and something.
Oh yeah, I think 200 and something before the enema. But
for
no,
the blood test and the normal examination.
But that wasn't the issue. The issue was getting our boy
getting him well
sorted out, and if she's what she was saying about this enema, and she said, or we could try something else and then maybe bring him back for the enema if that doesn't work. But I thought, if he's got to have it done, and knowing, I think we've all been there, haven't we, when we've been a bit bunged up and it's not comfy, and I thought, no, get it done, and we'll sort it out from there. So we go off home, and she was going to phone us if anything came up during the procedure. And then we got a telephone call to say that they'd done an ultrasound and they'd found a large mass.
The size of a grapefruit.
She didn't say that until later on. But anyway, I'm still thinking pink blanket. That I was so convinced in my mind it was the pink blanket. And she said, could they do an x-ray? Because obviously that's more cost again. But they would have a clearer picture of exactly where this mass is. And well, they knew where it was, but what it was affecting, they would just get a much clearer picture. So we said, yes, do the x-ray. And then we got a phone call saying that they'd found this mass that was the size of a large grapefruit, and it's not in the digestive tract. So I said, pink blanket, and she said, no, it's not anywhere in his digestive tract, but it is pushing against his large bowel, and that's why nothing's going past. She said the enema has produced almost nothing. There was no constipation at all, but this is now pressing against his large intestine. So I said, well, while he's actually under anaesthetic, can you operate and deal with it now today? And she said no, it would need a much deeper anaesthetic, and it would have to last a lot longer. It was a much more involved thing, so it wasn't something that they could do on the Sunday.
Mm.
So we said, okay, then we'll come in and pick him up and discuss where we go from here. And we went back at 3:30, and she called us through the consulting room to the area at the back where the pens are and where everything happens. And she showed us the ultrasound, which, frankly, I can just about pick out a baby on an ultrasound, but I'm not used to dog anatomy anyway, and to find it a grapefruit size, I didn't know what I was looking at, so I really didn't understand it. So she said, well, come and look at the x-ray, and that was a lot clearer, where you could actually see that there was this huge mass. And we were having this conversation with her, and she was saying, you could ask for a second opinion, you could get a specialist surgeon, but our advice, because she's not the only vet there were other vets there who'd consulted, and she said it's inoperable. And when she said it's inoperable, her eyes were just so full of tears. And I just really felt for her, because she was trying to tell me that we'd lost our dog. But I the minute she said it's not the pink blanket, I'm thinking that even if they can operate, this is going to cost so much money that I just don't know that we've got enough money to cover it. If you're bringing in specialist surgeons, and then if it was a cancerous tumour, then there could be years of ongoing treatment afterwards. And I just thought it's going to be a horrible decision between having a surgery that I can't afford, or just accepting right now we're going to have to let him go. But ever since we lost Darcy, we had a vet come out to the home and let her go at home on the sofa. I said that I will do that for all of our dogs. So we said, well, we'll take him home, and I'll get a vet to come out and we'll let him go. So of course we were so upset, but taking him out, he wasn't a happy boy. We didn't know how much of it was because of this large mass and him feeling unwell anyway, and how much was due to the fact that they'd given him this enema. They'd obviously been prodding and poking and doing all kinds of things to him, which would make him uncomfortable anyway. But he was kind of not his normal self. He was very subdued and not right. So we took him home. Did you offer him anything to eat that night? I can't remember.
Yeah, I offered.
Yeah, he did have a little bit. He had some tin food, didn't he?
No, he'd had lamb.
Oh yes, we were having lamb that evening for ourselves, and Neil gave him all of his lamb. And
I gave him a little bit of my lamb, and he liked it. So he had all the lamb that I was having.
And most of the lamb that I was having, because you said that he was eating it, so I said, you can have what I have.
The following morning, he had a little bit of ham.
And he had been drinking milk, hadn't he?
And
over that couple of days
a little bit of milk,
where he wasn't eating properly, he was drinking milk. Because so that was the Sunday. Then Monday morning, he was still very out of sorts. But was that because he'd had an anaesthetic? Was he still feeling groggy? Was it all the things that happened the day before? But I thought, it's now inevitable that we're going to lose him, so I need to phone and make arrangements. And I'm thinking in my mind, this is Monday morning, I'm thinking if we can have one more day, so Tuesday, maybe Wednesday.
Yeah.
Because at the vets I'd said, if we can have painkillers for him, I don't want him in pain, so if we can have some painkillers. And she said, yes, I'll give you painkillers. And I said, well, the problem would be if he's not eating, trying to give him tablets. So could we have Metacam, because that's we can give it in a syringe? And she said, no, he needs opiates. And that was another thing that says there's no coming back from this. This is.
Yeah, they had actually said that it was inoperable. and that's why it would have had, if there was any chance, it would have been a specialist. But so to know that a normal vet, it's not
something that a normal vet would tackle.
Yes. So he's then been prescribed the opiates, which should last 8 hours.
Yeah, it's a slow release, so it's with 3 a day, 1 every 8 hours.
Yeah.
So he had the Monday 8 o'clock in the morning one.
But within about 3 hours, he was uncomfortable again.
He was whimpering. He was just whimpering and crying. But I had already phoned Vets to Home, which is the service that I used for Darcy and Reckless. But they were so busy. The first appointment they could give me was Thursday morning. And I thought, oh no, this is too far ahead. But I said, well, book it for Thursday morning, because I thought I really don't want to take him back to the vets and lose him in the vet's office. But so I booked that. But the Amanda who spoke to me said, I can give you the number of another vet that does the same service. So I said, yes, please do, thinking I really don't want anybody else. We've had Dr. Joe out from Vets to Home twice. Yeah. We knew Dr. Joe and we felt comfortable about having him back. But I said, no, give me the other number. And by the lunchtime, really, by the time we were giving him the next dose of painkiller, because the first one just
we actually gave it early. Yeah, I mean, as you say, it was lunchtime when we gave him the next one. He'd only
it wasn't
had it
due one till 8 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
And we were giving it because we thought, at this stage of the game, it's not going to hurt to give him too many. It
would have been 4 o'clock, but it was
4 o'clock.
About halfway through. So at 12 o'clock, 4 hours in, he needed another one, and it's like, well, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah. So this other vet that does Vets to Home are based in Peacehaven, which is a very long drive, and so I have to actually pay extra for them to drive up to Crawley. But this other vet that they gave me the number for was in Horsham, which is only 4 miles down the road.
Yeah.
So I phoned Headley from Rest Assured Pets and said, do you have any availability to come out today? And I was a hot mess on the phone. I just couldn't stop crying, which isn't like me. I'm not a cry sort of person, but we just lost, losing Chester. We'd lost Reckless the year before, Darcy the year before that, and it's like, dot, dot, dot. But then when we bought them, they were all puppies together. Darcy and Reckless were 11 days apart in age, and then Chester was almost exactly a year younger. So we had a birthday in February, one in March and one in April. Chester being the youngest, but we knew having them together, it was likely that they would kind of go together, but we didn't think yet. We thought we'd have another
6 years.
6 years
we thought
before we'd start losing
15, 16, we thought they would kind of live till.
But anyway, I spoke to Headley, and he was lovely on the phone. He said, yes, I can come out this afternoon, any time after 2 o'clock, and it was a case of, I wanted as much time with Chester as we could have, because it was so sudden. We just weren't expecting this. And, with Reckless, we'd known for months that he was...
Yeah.
That he was at the end of his last part of his life. And we managed to give him 3 months of quality life before he actually went. But with Chester, just, one day, fine, next day...
But with Headley, he was so professional but personal at the same time, and calm, and no rushing. There was no rush. It was all
So I'd said he'd said any time after 2. So he'd said something about he had to be somewhere else. So I said, well, don't get caught up in rush hour traffic. Allow the rush hour to pass first, so you're not caught in traffic. So any time after 6:30, 6:30, 7 o'clock, that sort of time. And during the afternoon, we all spent time. Chester had just spent the whole day curled up on the sofa. He had my dressing gown over him. I thought because it smelt of me, and he always used to sit on me, and I was sat with him for part of the time. Neil was sat the other side of him. Bear came and sat with him. Echo came up and gave him little licks here and there. She doesn't ever sit and settle, but she
I slept in the lounge that evening beforehand with
Yeah.
him, so if you
yeah,
needed
between
to,
Saturday and Sunday.
if you needed to go out or anything.
But throughout the whole of Monday, he'd gone out into the garden once and managed a wee, but then came back in and just curled up on the sofa, and he wasn't even fidgeting on the sofa. It was just hours in the same position. He just didn't want to move, and he was in distress. He was whimpering and crying, and I was just thinking, oh please hurry up and get here, Headley, please. And it was getting to 7 o'clock, and then literally 7 o'clock on the button, Headley arrived, and he says on the Rest Assured website that having the other dogs and members of the family there at the time so that they all know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so he was fine about having the other dogs there, because in the past we've been with Darcy and Reckless, but my son's been there to take the others out for a walk, so it's all happened while they're out of the house. But Headley was wonderful. He came in, he made friends with Echo and Bear, and Chester had actually stood up with knowing that somebody had come into the house. He did actually stand up and he managed to walk across to the water bowl, and he had a drink. He had a really nice drink of water. But even though part of you in your heart thinks, oh, maybe this means he'll be all right, you just know that it's not going to be all right. This is what he had was if we didn't have him put to sleep, it was going to starve him to death, because it was just pressing against anything, and it wouldn't be a pleasant end of his life.
You showed Headley the scans.
The vet had given me the photos of the scans.
And he was actually able to show that you could. He actually explained it, and it could actually show that where the mass was actually pressing against the stomach and where it wasn't allowing things to go through.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it was pressing the stomach. It was the intestine.
Or the intestine.
It was actually right up in his groin, in kind of just by his back leg, just tucked right, and it was tucked so far up that even the other vet hadn't found it when she examined him. And Headley said that because with both these services that come out to the house, they give a sedation first, so the dog's fast asleep before they start injecting the final.
Yeah. So
he said when he's asleep, I'd like to actually have a feel and kind of confirm the diagnosis, which we were really happy about, because if he could have turned around to us and said, no, try this drug or try doing that, or I can fix it.
Yeah, we would have gone for it, definitely, without a doubt. I was just wanting him to say, oh no, actually this is wrong, and we can fix this. We would have loved that. I mean, I wasn't optimistic that would happen, but if he could have said that, then he would still be here.
Yeah, but he felt the mass and he said, no, this is absolutely the right decision. He said it's a hard decision, but he was so lovely with him. He actually arrived at 7 o'clock and it was about 9:30 when he left. He had coped with 2 traumatised dog parents, Echo, who is still very boisterous, and Bear, who's just interested in anybody who comes to the house, and very, very poorly Chester. And he couldn't have done anything any better than he did. He was absolutely wonderful. And we had, if you use these services, or the vet, sometimes they take them to the pet crematorium for you, but we've always, once our animals die, we lay them out in their own bed, and usually we keep them at home for a day or 2, but unfortunately that wasn't possible with Chester. By the next morning he was leaking from his nose, and it was a case of no, he's going to have to go and
go to the camera.
28 minutes, how long have we been?
24.
Right, so we're coming to the end of time on this, but we're coming to the end of the story anyway. So we said no, we'll bring him along. We always use Chestnut Lodge Crematoria, Pets Crematoria, and that's where we're actually filming from today. Even as we're making this film, Chester is being cremated. We'll wait here, collect his ashes, and he'll come back home with us. And then eventually he will be in the Long Barrow with us forever.
At All Cannings.
At All Cannings Long Barrow. But that was Chester's story. But because his life touched so many people, he was born to a street dog in Greece, and I want to make another video when I'm learn to edit, and I will give the whole of Chester's story because it's a lovely story.
Yeah.
But anyway, anybody who knew him, thank you for loving him. And from us, thank you and goodbye.
Yeah.